All right. Welcome today. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Sober Sunday. Stimulating conversations with me, Simon Bevy. We've been doing this now for 3 months. We've had wonderful conversations about different topics. The last 2 weeks, we were talking about COVID-19 and some of the things we need to do to make sure that we're safe and we're protecting our families. And today we shift gears and we're going to be talking for the next 3 or 4 weeks about the nation of Kenya. But for those of you not from Kenya, we want to encourage you to continue to listen. This is generally looking at the trouble with nations, the challenges we face, especially in the African context and specifically in Kenya. And so my name is Simon Bevy. Glad to host you today. Looking forward to a great conversation. But I want to introduce my guest before I even introduce the topic that we're going to be talking about. We are 3 of us today. I'm very excited to have Dr. Katindi Sivi. She's a futures, is it strategist? She does scenarios and trainings around the future with Longview Consult, and she's going to say more about herself. And we're very grateful that you made time to be here today. So please, Katindi, go ahead, introduce yourself, say a bit about your family and what you do.
All right. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're seeing this from. My name, as you've been told, is Katindi Sivi, and I do research policy analysis, but using futures methodologies. So a lot of scenarios building, a lot of systems thinking, a lot of horizon scanning and so forth, to just bring in a different perspectives, a different perspective when you think about the future of things mainly. And so definitely a lot of that work is already beginning to peak, particularly because of the disruptions that a lot of, the globe is facing right now. And so I'm glad that particularly in the African continent, this issue around just the long view, if you want, is picking up a lot. So of course, as a researcher and as a policy analyst, I do write a bit because of that background. And aside from work, I am a mom of 2 lovely girls, Nashipai and Nasarian, and I really thank God for that.
Okay, welcome very much, Katindi. I'm involved together with you in a group where we're painting some scenarios of what our country is going to be in the next so many years after COVID or with COVID. And I've really enjoyed that. So welcome, Katindi. And we look forward to your contribution today. Then I have a friend of mine that we have done a few things together. We have trained together about governance. We have had similar passions about community transformation and governance as well. My dear friend Ken Jiro is going to introduce himself. He talks a lot about Ungwana and Ushenzi. And for those of you not from this part of the world, he's going to explain a lot more what that is. But as Ken introduces himself, welcome all of you that are joining with us. We're just introducing our guests, and feel free to interact with us as we continue. Ken, go ahead.
Thank you, Simon, and hi, Katindi.
Hi.
I'm excited about what you're talking about. I think, did you do personal features?
Yes, I do. So I need a job.
Scenarios. Thank you. My name is Ken Jiru, as Simon has said, and I run the Ungwana Institute. Ungwana means uprightness. It means doing the right thing. It really is founded on the belief that every one of us as a human being has what it takes to be the best that they can be. Simon, allow me also sometimes to say pastor. I'm used to saying pastor also. Mentioned another word, Ushenzi, but we are the Ungwana Institute. What we push is the Ungwana Institute. Ushenzi really is just the opposite of what we talk about. And our core focus is values, attitudes, and behavior change, which is a very difficult thing to do. And indeed, in my mind, I am clear that the core problem that we are facing as Africans and even globally. I mean, if you look at the world today, even before COVID, there was a lot of chaos everywhere. Governance is going south, so to speak. I mean, look at even so-called established countries like the US. I mean, you talk to an American, they don't even want to talk about it. And so for me, from the perspective of the Ungwana Institute, it is about culture, really. It's about talking about that foundational software, if I may use that word. In fact, I like saying that at the Ungwana Institute, we consider ourselves human software specialists. And I like asking people to imagine a phone. It doesn't matter how expensive it is or how good it is. If the software has glitches, you have problems. And so so it is with the computer. And so for us, it's about who we are as human beings. And we fundamentally believe that to every one of us, we've been given a gift. And to the extent that you're using it and living it as you should, then we call you a Mungwana. And to the extent that you are behaving like, allow me to use that word, monkey, the monkey see, monkey do perspective. You do not know who you are. You are a generator, should I say, of chaos. Then we call you Mshenzi. And that's the opposite. Mshenzi just means a primitive, backward, person of darkness. And so those two words, from an African perspective or even from a Kenyan perspective, give us a handle to talk about ordinarily very difficult things. And we have found that to be so as we have engaged publics at all levels of society.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ken. We are jumping into it already, but let me just say, for those of you who have an idea about this country, Kenya, 57 years or so ago, we got independence from the British, and we began a journey of building a nation, and everyone was looking forward. Our forefathers were looking forward. Many years later, depending on what stats you look at, they say up to 50%, some say 38% of the people in our country live below the poverty line. The international poverty line. In terms of life expectancy, we are ranked 132nd in the world. And for men, for male is 64.4 years, for females is 68.9. When it comes to environment, we have our fair share of problems. I don't even want to go so deep into the stats that I've written here. But the truth is, as a nation, a lot of our people are not very proud of where we are at. I talk a lot to the youth. I interact with some of the leaders in our country, and a lot of people don't see the future of this nation. I think in the 70s, early 80s, we were at a good place. We were beginning to rise up, and then we began to drop again. In the 90s, after some reforms, political and economic reforms, things began to look up again, but then they took a nosedive not too long thereafter. And it's felt for many people like we are on this experiment that doesn't seem to work very well. And that's why we say, let's talk today about the trouble with Kenya, and it could be said really the trouble with Africa. But let's look at our country, the trouble with Kenya. What's wrong with us? What's going on in our country? Who bewitched us? We added that because in Africa, when things don't go very well and consistently go badly, people think that you've been bewitched, that there's fate and demons that seem to be against you, and you're not able to get hold of yourself. So let me start with you, Dr. Katindi, and just you could tell us from your perspective, interest with the youth. You wrote a youth fact book a few years ago. And of course, your studies. What do you think is a problem with our country?
All right. So first of all, one of the things that is interesting for me is the title you give this webinar, Who Bewitched Us? And I think that's the beginning, in my view, of one of the things that I begin to see as an issue. So first of all, if you just think about bewitching, it is to cast a spell so that you cannot maybe think, and it means then that it is somebody else's fault, not your own fault, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest problems about us is that we blame everyone else but ourselves. So the first thing I see as a big issue is we have consistently made choices. It's not that we have found ourselves here by accident. These things have gone on way before independence, and there are many structural issues that have happened, the decisions, how we got independence, are we under somebody else's control, etc. But we cannot keep blaming those systems and not take responsibility for the things that the choices that we have made. So an example, the leaders we have chosen, right? And elections is coming in 2022. The same narrative that was happening just before the last elections has already started. But eventually we will sit back and say who bewitched us. So for me, that not taking responsibility is a very big one. And so what we, in a sense, the statistics you're reading are only symptoms of the deeper problem. And I worry about what we call problems. And so for me, and I hope that this conversation will then redefine what we call problems. So our practice is the first issue for me that is a big, big, big problem. The second thing that is a very, very, very big problem is our mindset, right? The stories we tell ourselves is a very big issue. So number one, just think about our definitions of things, the narrative we tell ourselves. So let me give you a quick example, like Africa, the Africa Rising narrative. So the African Rising narrative has been, in the before 2000, we had a lot of labels like you're a basket case and so forth, right? And then the 2000s came, and somehow we became the fact that Africa is rising in the sense that, we have a youth bulge, or we have an opportunity for us to increase the productivity and labor, and it's an opportunity for us then to increase the expenditure capacity. And so you've seen a lot of companies coming to Africa to, in a sense, take a share of that, right? So this Africa narrative story, we haven't questioned it deeply, and it was taken by politicians as a very big one because, just excuse me, girls, go back upstairs. So what happened is because of that, of course, it makes politicians look very, very good, right? And it makes, particularly because when we are ranked a certain way, let's say you've been told you've improved from this index to this index, politicians then know that they are going to get a second term in office, right? And so we cling on to those narratives and we don't question them a bit more deeply. But disruptions like COVID-19 have really, 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 exposed that false narrative about us. Because now, 75%, according to Kenyan statistics, are going to be out of work. And basically what that is telling us is a lot of us were just a salary or two salaries away from poverty, which means the notion of a middle class is actually a fallacy rather than a truth, right? And so those, basically what I'm saying is those stories that we tell ourselves that we don't question, that don't have a strong foundation or a strong basis. And so our focus on what is superficial and not really focusing on creating a real middle class that can sustain a growing economy and, reduce poverty, then means that how we define things matters, because that can lead you into the wrong path or into a right path. But also this romance with the past. First of all, just saying that these things that we find ourselves in have occurred over a long period of time, right? And so that historic, we have refused, first of all, to address our historical issues, truth, justice, all those things, and we keep then layering that with much more, right? So we have a very complex, we make the problem more complex, we make it more layered, and that means it becomes more difficult to resolve, right? But then also this whole issue about individualism, short-termism, our own not being future-oriented. You saw the other day on news, and I don't know how true this is, but somebody had bought an ICU bed in their home because of what COVID is presenting. So instead of fixing the system, whoever has money can fly out to India, or the politicians can take themselves and their children, and even their own tax. I mean, they finance their own health benefits with taxpayers' money, but they will actually not finance the hospital here. They have a package that will take them abroad, and that for me is a very big issue. And you've seen the discussion with salaries, this whole thing about when it's time to pay health workers. I mean, there are such few MPs debating that, but when it comes to paying retired MPs, you've seen, and you're wondering why as an MP should I pay you when you're not in office? Why didn't you save your money when you were an MP? Why should it be my fault? Now I don't have services, but I sustain your lifestyle. I mean, it's a fundamental flaw that has to be dealt with. But lastly, Pastor, if I may, it's also the systems we operate under that is a very big issue. If the way government is structured, it is a political process. And the political process has shown us that it is not about people. It is about selfish interests. But we still keep hoping that system will actually resolve fundamental problems. So we are like mad, metaphorically speaking, mad men and women doing the same thing over and over again and expect that we will get different results. So it may be in a sense we are bewitched, right? So instead of looking for an alternative system, right, that will then replace that system that cannot and will not and is not designed to work for us, we still keep feeding it and hoping that it will. But in essence, it will never. So let me rest my case and hear what Ken has to say. But what we are calling problems are not problems. It is the mindset, the practice, the systems that we have to fix for us then to begin dealing with what we are calling problems.
Well, thank you very much. You've raised a lot of issues there, and we'll keep coming back to them. I think let me emphasize two that you brought up. And for those of you who are joining us, we are talking about the trouble with Kenya, and we are asking the question, who bewitched us? Are we bewitched, or have we bewitched ourselves? Or what is the problem? And thank you for some of you are beginning to write some comments. Hilary Limo, we are happy to have you, and you're saying you hope that we're going to have honest conversations. And true, yeah, we want to hear a lot of your comments. Those of you who have joined us, please invite some of your friends. Let's talk about this because it concerns our country and our future and our children and children's children. Let's discuss and come up with some solutions of what we all should do. But Katindi there, bringing out several things. Number one, you said, we don't take responsibility. We blame everyone else. And lack of taking responsibility means then we have nothing to do about it. It's either a few politicians out there, it's fate. So we have this fatalistic attitude, or sometimes we say religiously it's God's will that we are where we are. So refusing to take responsibility and blaming colonialists and the West and a lot of other people and China and a lot of other people, but not taking responsibility. And then you talked about us not questioning our story and the romance with the past, where we just want to always refer to the past and not be able to move on. And we're going to come back to several other things you have raised up. So let me ask, Ken, what do you think? And you had begun to say it, so let's hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Like Katindi, I start off by underlining that sentence, who bewitched us? And of course, the presumption is that somebody, like you were saying, cast a spell and left us perplexed, wondering what to do now. But let me say that and this I've come to this position after engaging, like I said, on several levels, like from the grassroots to even the leaders we are talking about. I've had occasion of giving talks, giving lectures, and one of the things that I've come to conclude, more so as also as a practitioner of what we call change management, is the fact that if you focus, and I think that's what we've been doing in Africa, we are focused on the technical side of the problem and have forgotten the people side of the problem. What do I mean by that? We will do plans. Like now, for instance, go to any ministry, you'll find fantastic plans. But after we plan, we basically put them on the shelf. I mean, Katindi, for instance, the scenarios work that you have done over the years, this is work that we have, and everybody knows that we have. Scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, and we'll end up just doing what I call ushenzi, going back to that basic primitive reflex, which becomes now a culture. And by the way, when I talk about a culture, I'm talking about, I use a basic definition of culture as the way we do things around here, right? So that when we then focus on the technical side of the change, we then talk about roads. I mean, listen to even the discourse that is happening in Kenya today in terms of even the distribution of devolution money, right? People are saying roads, people are saying hospitals, people are saying schools, people are saying electricity. Nobody is talking about the quality. And by the way, beyond the school, because a citizen, for instance, when you come out of school, depending on the software that has been put into your mind, that is what will determine how productive you are. Right? It does not matter whether you are born in a desert, or you are born in a forest, or you are born in a valley, or you are born at the coast. If you are thinking, your mentality, your approach to life is an ushenzi approach, that is what you're going to do. All right? When I listen, for example, to the elites, and I'm using this very live issue that is on the table now on the question of evolution, who has eaten more than who, and who should get what. One of the things that I underline in bold red pens is the fact that all these people who are saying we have been marginalized are all millionaires, if not billionaires. Whatever tribe they come from, they belong to the same club. They drive the same big cars. They travel all over the world to go and benchmark, and I put it in quotes. And they are paid a lot of money. Right? But for purposes of continuing to sustain themselves in power, and for purposes of ensuring that we are charged emotionally, then they create narratives, which then again go back to the technical side of the problem and not the people side of the problem. Let me give you an example, which I've always reflected on. Think about the Turkana and the Pokot. For years, they have been killing each other. Cattle rustling is a way of life. And in fact, it is canonized. If I'm a Turkana and I go and raid the Pokot and I get a lot of cows, people cheer me. All right? And then I ask myself, even if you pour billions into that economy, what do you think is going to happen? They're just going to buy more cows. And they're just going to continue raiding each other, and they're going to continue killing each other. And then you have peace on top of peace on top of peace organizations, by the way, which don't even want that chaos to subside, because that is how they survive. So what am I saying? I am saying that there is something fundamentally wrong with the way we think, and Katindi talked about that, the way we feel, the way we act, the way we define ourselves, the way we define success, the way we innovate, the way we create. Again, when I look at a country like America, I don't know whether you've ever watched a documentary called The Men Who Made America. Railways, roads, electricity, they were not wired by governments. They were wired by individuals, simply because it was an economy that opened up the space for people to be able to grow and to think great. All right. When an American thinks about opening a cafe, he thinks about opening a restaurant in every city in the world. So that you find a company called Starbucks, for instance, has over 6,000 outlets globally. And what are they selling? They are selling the coffee that my mother grows. My mother is being paid maybe 20 shillings a kilo. And I'm paying for a cup of that coffee. I am paying about 3 pounds, 4 pounds, which means I'm paying 500 shillings for 20 grams of that coffee. And I ask myself, what mental shift will it take for me to be able to sell a cup of coffee in London? Right? So that if, for instance, this company we call Starbucks came to Kenya, our economy starts feeling the heat of one company that sells coffee that has come to Kenya. In fact, the other day, I was being sarcastic on social media. Somebody posted and said Apple had made, I think over this COVID period, they've grown their sales by over 45 billion, something crazy like that. No, it was Amazon. And I said, why don't we shut down everything in Kenya?
Mm.
Sell off all the parastatals and then invest our money in these companies and go to sleep. Mate, wake up and divide the money. So that the biggest task we'll have is to divide the dividends at the end of every year. Because, by the way, these guys will be working for us. And we are talking about 60 people. I mean, 60,000 people. 60,000 people running a company that is of about 15 times the size of this economy. For crying out loud. To watch your shits.
Ken, I can see your passion and feel it. But I like what you're saying. I think you're saying the people side, and I love all of you that are writing and responding. Please, as we said, keep welcoming your friends. Let's have an honest conversation. Post out what you fear or think is a problem with our country. Jessica Musila says change will only come after we own our mess and commit to deal differently. I like that. Colleen Kerubo Araka says, I like that. The people side of culture that largely drives change. We focus on the technical aspects a lot more. Thank you for those of you who are talking to us. Continue to post your comments. Katindi, as we come back to you, and I love what Ken says, because we're in agreement that we could do a lot of projects. I think it's Mugo Kibati who used to say a lot when he was in charge of Vision 2030 CEO, and he used to say that we could have a great Thika Road, but if our mentality is not changed, we're just going to come and park in the middle of it to pick up, passengers.
By the way, baby, without cutting you short,
Yeah.
Think about the Miraa Pro boxes that drive that hurtle. You don't drive, they hurtle down towards the city. By the way, knocking everything on the road, and it has been happening. Yakanenda, Miaka Road. Everybody knows about them along the road. Police know, we citizens know, and every other day. In fact, just yesterday, they caused an accident, almost killing one of my friends. Now, that is what Mugo is talking about. That Shenzi behavior, and it is everywhere. It is everywhere.
Yeah, that as people, we just, hold on to this way of thinking. We become inactive, we become passive. We know the problem, but we're not doing anything about it. Katindi, as we come back to you, one of the things I say is that eventually we need to build a 5C culture and a 5C leadership. And the 5 C's, number one, and we'll be talking about them in the next few weeks. One is character, the kind of integrity, believe in some principles. I don't remember which US president said, God grant that our principal men will be men of principle. And what you're saying is that without integrity in the lives of the people, and it's not just the leaders, it's everyone else. I am currently serving in the County Public Service Board in Makueni. And the more I get closer to the way people think, the more I realize that if this kind of embracing of values, that we actually say no to corruption from the very top to the bottom. Because sometimes I talk to the young people. I talked to a few in Makueni recently, and one of them told me, if the big guys are eating money up there, what's wrong with us eating? And I was awed by that kind of thinking. I thought these young people would be the ones saying, no, we can't continue that way. We need to rise up and fix our nation. So just the character of a people, which is really what we embrace and what we reward and what we celebrate. And we seem to celebrate the kind of culture, the Oshensi kind of culture, that is about stealing from ourselves. Because we steal from the county, and it's our mothers and brothers who pay taxes to finance that county, and then we steal from it. We steal from our government instead of using that money to do what we need to do. We just steal that money, and we feel like we are benefited. So it's like we work for other people. We don't have the integrity to serve ourselves well. And I find that intriguing.
Mm-hmm. So what is the question? What do I think about
No,
it?
we're just continuing with the conversation where you feel the problem is. And you talked about systems as well. You talked about systems and the things we keep doing over and over again.
Yeah, so one of the things that we must understand is
Mhm.
this whole issue about survival.
Yeah.
When people have, and I'm not excusing anything or anyone, if people have to are dehumanized, they
Uh-huh.
will behave, they will go to the level of that inhumanity that they have been reduced to, right? So, for
Mhm.
example, if there are resources to take people to school and to hospitals, but then we steal those resources and people we condition people to do. And I think Ken talked about this in how we condition the monkeys, right? We
Mhm.
sort of like condition people to behave a certain way. And that is why if I am a leader and I am
Mhm.
set an example, and
Mhm.
I'm not staying to the standards of that leadership,
Mhm.
I feel what I communicate to the people below me is that it is okay to do the same thing. And so
Mhm.
because of that, I condition them that way. And when time comes, they will run amok. And that's why they say if leaders are doing this, in fact, the issue, they don't even see it as a crime because they, in fact, compared to the millions and the billions they are stealing, mine is only 5 shillings or mine is only a bag of maize. Surely it is little. And so you begin to justify those levels. So there's the element of survival that we need to begin looking at. But the opposite of that is the issue of choice. The fact that as an individual, you make choices about what you will do and what you will believe, right? So there has to be an equilibrium there that is struck to be able to say, does the system make people thrive so that then they don't have to make bad choices about what they do? And so for me, I think a lot of times we blame, people for the choices they are making, but we are not trying to see what the system has done to them. I'll give you an interesting example that I came across. This whole narrative, and we have and that's why I'm saying the narratives we tell ourselves are very important. So think about the youth bulge and the fact that in the 80s we had a peak of the children born, right, or the fertility rate. And so really, if you're a policymaker, you need to know that these children are going to grow, and at some point they'll need the services, right? But we didn't do that. Now we have a bulge. We know young people are getting out of school to get employed, but what do we do now? We are trying to react to the crisis. All right. But then what have we done with that crisis? We've now decided that rather than provide the basic services as governments we should, which is a good education, and now we are becoming employers. We are creating funds all over the place to loan young people to start businesses. Essentially, what you're telling young people is that by telling them start businesses, and not everyone, by the way, can be a business person. Incidentally, I happened to run, like you said, I do a lot of youth research, and I did a survey for one of, let me not mention the client, but the book is available online. It's on the future of Africa to 2060, and it's a youth fact book around that. And we actually surveyed about 1,000 plus young people from Africa, and we asked, would you like to be a business person? Where would you like to be employed in the future? And they said, we don't want to run small businesses. We actually want to get employed so that we can understand the trades of, running big companies, big corporations, so that when we go to do business, we are not being relegated to small household enterprises that cannot employ more than one person and that will never grow, or they do not want to be relegated to the informal sector. But what is policy doing? Official policy has told us where there is employment for young people is where it is in. It is small and business enterprise. So these two are working at cross purposes. But also, what that policy does is that it shifts the blame from the system to the fact that the young person then has to work hard and figure out how they are going to be an employer. Right? So they become a problem solver instead of the problem that they are facing being solved for them. And I know there's a lot of controversy around this, but if you think about it critically, we're not even providing the infrastructure or the system that can be able to make that person become a successful entrepreneur. So you get this person to have a minimal education. You get this person, in fact, how they are trained to be entrepreneurs is quote unquote, is to go for a training for a few weeks, then you're given a small loan, and then you're told now go start. All of us, that what we are calling a business is a retail. We sell, buy and sell, goods that we are not even solving a critical societal problem that can help you build a business around that is sustainable. And so again, it goes back to definitions. It goes back to what is the reason why we are doing this. So my point is very simple. There is issues around choice, issues around survival, and then even what we are calling policy prescriptions. It's completely off the line that we will do this over and over again, but we are not going to resolve the fundamental problem that we are facing. So in my view, government has no business whatsoever trying to run loans or trying to employ people. They need to create an enabling environment. So the point is they need to invest in a good education so that by the time those young people get out into the market, they are not even looking for jobs. They have ready answers for societal problems that they can then be able to provide, and everyone wins. Okay, they get resources from those issues. They can think, they can solve problems, they can then be able to thrive in the society. Okay, and so for me, that lack of not thinking about the long-term future, being escapist about the policy prescriptions we are giving, is a fundamental problem that, again, like I said, layers what we already have as a crisis.
Okay. Well, strong statements there. Ken, we're about to come to you, and I'm about to ask you a strong question, because this culture of lies and corruption and not being truthful to ourselves seems to have lingered with us for a long time and become a culture where, where we say, even if this is a thief, he's our thief. You're stealing for us. And the politicians and other people make us believe that their corruption out there is for the benefit of their tribe, but really never gets there. But just talking about how do we change this character for us to be able to be wangwana, or to be people stand for what is right. But just to say thank you for your comments online. Ivy Kihara, I like what you say. The phrase, it's our turn to eat, has been taken literally. It's like people line up, so you keep quiet, just waiting for your opportunity so that you can also partake, and the rest should keep quiet so that you also enjoy. There's no line that people won't cross, even COVID. She's talking about even COVID money. And I like what you said, Jessica. You say, hurt people hurt others. I think that's referring to what Katindi says. Sometimes the system dehumanizes people and they just feel like, well, we just want to survive right now. What else can we do? And then the dehumanized people create other bad systems. So it's almost like, which came first? Is it the egg or the chicken? Because a bad system produces bad people, and bad people produce bad systems, and it just keeps being a cycle. Michael Mukayagi say, how can such critical information reach the masses and ensure they understand the underlying issues as well stipulated by Dr. CV. Thank you, Vincent, for being here. So true, Dr. Gatindi. The government's job is to create an enabling environment, not to enter the market of giving loans to entrepreneurs. So, Ken, you've been doing a lot of talks, a lot of trainings and conversations, trying to drive out the Ushenzi and this bad behavior among Kenyans. Are you succeeding? Is there hope?
It's been a difficult journey, a very difficult journey, because culture change and behavior change, by the way, is the most difficult thing to do anywhere. Human beings can change. In my mind, human beings can change because of two things. One, they shock themselves by the level of barbarity to which they have sunk. And there are very many examples of this in the world. When we talk about World War I, World War II, what happened in Rwanda, man is capable of what I call Ushenzi Kamili. You become an animal, all right? But then you get to a point where it hits you and you say, what are we doing, all right? And that is how the United Nations was formed after World War II. the Wazungus realized we're going to finish ourselves. So they formed the League of Nations, which became the United Nations, just to try and keep moderating this savagery, all right? But savagery also, knocks something in you that tells you, wait a minute, we are more than this. But on the other hand, again, I fundamentally believe that being sentient beings, because that's how we're made by God, we have that spark in ourselves that if we aspire to become better human beings and apply ourselves to it, we become, all right? And that is the spark, for instance, that creates a Mandela, who is prepared to stay in a cell for 27 years, just to say, no, you're not going to do this to us. Or a Gandhi who leave his law profession, dress up like the Indians and spend the rest of his life. Hey. What has happened?
Yeah, keep going. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why my video has gone.
Now we can see you.
Let's continue. So that you then find that because of the reflexes of these men who are self-conscious, and I'm introducing that word conscious because I fundamentally believe that a human being at an individual level and a collective level needs to raise their level of consciousness. And by the way, a good number of times, what we call schooling does not raise your consciousness. What it gives you is knowledge, all right? Knowledge of how machines work. But in terms of a consciousness of what it means to be human, that is one thing that the African has basically forgotten. And to the extent that we don't have a leadership that understands that, then, like I said earlier, we are constantly looking at technical things. When, for instance, we go to an election, you'll find leaders promising you roads, promising you water. They do not cast visions. I mean, you can imagine one country saying we're going to the moon, another one is telling you I'm bringing you piped water. Sometimes when I think about, for instance, even roads, the other day I Googled something and I realized that the human being was paving roads 4000 BC. 4000 BC, the Romans were building roads, right? But in Kenya, building roads is something that we are meant to be so happy about and excited about. That because of our, should I say, our low level of consciousness. In my mind, what I'm saying is that things like road, water, electricity, by now, given when they were discovered, should be foregone conclusions. Just take some time, and I'm challenging members to do this, especially now that we have some time over this COVID period. Go into the technical finesse or technical capabilities that the West today has. Sometimes you look at engines. The other day I was saying they're talking about now moving away from the combustion jet engine to one they are calling ion sijui thrust engine, right? An engine that is going to give them capability of Mach 5 speeds. That is 5 times the speed of light. And so in the next couple of years, call it 10, 15, it will be taking 4 hours from London to a place like Australia, right? And that today takes 14 hours. But the point I'm trying to drive out is, when I look at these things and what these guys are doing out there, I really ask myself, are we human? It's called it 10, 15. It will be taking 4 hours from London to a place like Australia, right? And that today takes 14 hours. But the point I'm trying to drive out is, when I look at these things and what these guys are doing out there, I really ask myself, are we human? It's called it 10, 15. It will be taking 4 hours from London to a place like Australia.
All right.
And today takes 14 hours. But the point I'm trying to drive out is, when I look at these things and what these guys are doing.
Okay, Ken, I think you can probably just leave and then rejoin. I think there was a technical problem there.
Today takes 14 hours. But the point I'm
Ken, all right. Well, we are sorry about that. I think Ken experienced a technical problem there, and it just began to repeat itself. But I think what Ken is saying, Katindi, is that we've brought ourselves pretty low. It's not like we are not capable. I mean, there are a lot of discoveries that happened here in Africa, a lot of civilization that many years ago started here in Africa. Next week, we'll give some of those stats. But it looks like we, I don't know what happened to us, whether it's something that because of the way we were colonized And what happened to us, we began to feel like when we are sorting our own problems and we are sorting other people's problems. Because Ken, you're welcome back.
Yes.
We're glad to have you back, and I'll give you a chance to finish up what you were saying.
Yeah.
But I was talking about the 5 C's. We are talking about character, competence, the ability to get the job done. That's the second one. The kind of work ethic and skills that solve problems. And then we're talking about care for each other, that we truly care for one another. I'm amazed by how some of our leaders really don't care. All they care about is how much money goes to them, whether it's COVID money or whatever other money. It's how much becomes their own wealth. Really lack of care for one another. And then I talk about a conciliatory approach where we say, let's work together instead of working against each other, whether it's at tribal level, whether it's village level, whether it's ward level, or whether it's clan level, just being able to say, let's work together. And lastly, I talk about compelling vision, the kind of vision that we paint of where it is that we are going. So being able to work around those. But Ken,
Yes.
maybe for you to finish what you were saying our low level of consciousness, and we're not able to rise up.
Yes, I was saying our level of consciousness. And as I said this, somebody will, sometimes people come back and tell me we need first to solve our own basic problems and stuff like that. But I keep saying, when you go to engineering school, the first thing they tell you is that you're not here to reinvent the wheel. You're here to develop on the wheel, all right? The fact that Africans can fly these aircrafts, can drive these cars, can use these telephones. And by the way, Bevi, let me observe that all this equipment that we are using, I'm using a computer here, my phone, the lights here, nothing has been made by the African. Even the books behind over there in your shelf, all that technology has been the technology of the West. All right. And it is not that we can't think. Again, if you go into African history, you'll find that we had great civilizations. By the way, I don't know whether people know we had built with stone before the West got out of caves. Mandi, Ghana, Songhai, those pyramids, we were part of it, which means we can think. Great Zimbabwe. Some people want to say it was made, when they were made, that stone structure there was built by stray Roman generals. It's not true. It was the African. So what am I saying? I like your 5 C's, but I am also making the point that to the extent that we are not self-aware of who we are and what we can do, and the fact that we can lift up our heads and look into the skies and say, I am going to the moon, and make funny rudimentary things like were made by the Wright brothers on the back of which the aircraft was made. By the way, we are talking to ourselves. And we will not get anywhere. I just made the comment of, for instance, let me give you another example. What is it called? So this supermarket, a supermarket that is basically making more money than the whole Kenyan nation, creating more wealth than the whole Kenyan nation, 40 million people. But then if you talk to people, for instance, the average Kenyan, they say Mimi Maskini, right? My late father used to tell me that a poor man is not a person who doesn't have money in the pocket, but is a person whose spirit has been impoverished. So if you believe that you're poor, you are actually poor. If you believe that you have a spark and a gifting given to you by God, and you start growing it, you start fanning it. By the way, as they say, they say the world conspires to start basically delivering what it is that God wants you to do. All right. So my point is this. My point is that before we start talking about systems, and there's a writer called Jim Collins who says, first who and then what. Find and so in my mind, I'm saying, are you a Mungwana or a Mushenzi? If you're a Mushenzi, then it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, you are a teacher, you are a farmer, you are a lawyer, you are a fallen, should I say, human being. Today, Bevi, my mother lives in the village, and she's telling me it has become so bad because you employ somebody, and the next thing they are doing, they are stealing your hamburgers, they are stealing your andomas, they are stealing your coffee, they are stealing everything. So people are even starting to say, why should we continue farming? Yeah. The other day I employed a young man to do for me some small tent. I wanted some place covered that was very cold. He actually cheats me. And he comes and he's lying it on my face. And the reason I was taking him on was to help him. So it has become a cultural mold. And that is why when our leaders steal from us, for instance, if today I stole COVID funds, I can assure you I'll be the governor of Kirinyaga, because I'll go and bribe them and they will eat my money and they will elect me. That is how it works.
Yeah.
Or at any rate, I'll get a good shot at it because I have money. It doesn't matter where you got it from.
Yeah. And Ken, and I'm grateful. Next week we're going to have a politician as well who's going to come and tell us, from that perspective. But I love what you're saying. I think we've got to self-reflect. We've got to say we cannot continue like this. We are better than this. We could do better than this. And maybe coming to you, Katindi, let me ask you. Eunice Mburu has asked a strong question here. And I love this conversation. I think we need several hours, not 1 hour for this. But Eunice Mburu says, school does not raise our level of consciousness. So who, where, and how do we raise our level of consciousness? How do we help people, be able to rise up, from this base level? Where we should have left a long time ago. What do we do to stir up? We're saying this is a problem. We have drawn ourselves to a place, we sit on the dirt, as it were. And that's what we identify with. How do we rise up from there?
All right. I think, first of all, like I said, the one of the biggest issues I find with the way, again, I come back to the issue of definition, is we see problems as if they have just happened. We don't see the genesis, we don't see a life cycle attitude towards the challenges we face. So for example, when I was born, what are the things that I was taught, right? Because that has everything to do with what I have become. And the system isn't just where I was born and what happened to me, it's also the system of education that I passed through and what that taught me. So I like a question here you raise, or the issue you talk about, conciliatory approach. I think that's what you called it,
conciliatory,
right? Conciliatory, where we are sort of like working together, you know what. But I'm coming from a system that has taught me competition, because I was ranked number 1, 2, 3, or the last one. In fact, I went to a boarding school where, depending on what position you were in, you moved desks. So that even the class was demarcated along who was the clever one and who was not doing too well, right? And so on the basis of that, then I'm coming from a system that has taught me competition. How will I ever recondition myself to come and have this conciliatory approach? It is not possible. And so these very values that we are saying, in a sense, we almost then say that we are going to do one thing and expect a different result. So you educate, for example, graduates to memorize. You educate them to then, I happened to take a course which I quit midway, a master's program, that if I took the past papers for the last sort of like 4 or 5 classes, I pretty much had the exam that was coming. And so all I needed to do is not attend. I didn't need to attend the classes. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't, I did. But there are many people we didn't even know were our classmates, right? Up to the point of the exam. And so they came in, and depending on the past papers, and in fact, people even wrote there, and you could get them downstairs at the guy who does photocopy. So I could then do that. How do you expect such a guy to care? How do you expect such a person to be competent when they get out of college? How do you expect them to apply what they have learned in the workplace and resolve a crisis? So basically what we are saying is you cannot divorce the process that you have gone through with the product. And that is a fundamental issue that we need to keep questioning. What is the process that we are taking the people through? And what is the product? Because you see, if the issue is, for example, and I don't know whether I should use this, I don't know whether it's politically correct, but for the people, for the counties that said, leave us alone, huyo ni mwizi wetu, right? They should then be satisfied when the money is stolen. They should not complain. They should not make it a public issue. They should not make it a public outcry, because they are the one, they went through the process, and so they should be happy with the product. And for me, then, I am beginning to say that, how do we raise consciousness? It is to align process and product. and understand that from history to the future, there will be a connection. And if we do not align those things, then let's just accept the fate that comes to us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear you. You know, a few years ago, I was running for member of parliament, and those are some of the arguments I made. You know, the people are saying you're not giving us money. And I was saying I've not stolen like those who give you money, because they steal it from you and come back and give you a little bit of it. And then you think they are good, but they're not building you up. But they said, but they're good people because they're stealing for us. So it seems to be like a national culture, which is very annoying. And I know time has really gone, and we need to finish maybe in another 10 minutes. So I'm going to give each one of you one last chance to try and narrow. But Ken, this is what I hear. This is what I hear us say. I hear us say that there's a culture problem, the way we do things, the way we think, and the values and the software. That's a big issue that needs to be tackled. But number two, I hear us say we have a systems issue, and whether it's an education system that doesn't raise our level of consciousness, whether it's our politics, the way we do siasa or politics, and different other systems, the way we do business, the way we think about, empowering the youth. We just seem to have systems problem, a people problem. As we come towards a close in this, in the way we are trying to analyze the trouble with us, what would you say to the Kenyan who is listening and say, that sounds like me, that sounds like my neighbor, that sounds like my politician? What would be a first step to get out of this? And I love the way you are passionate, because I am as well, about the fact that, we're still pushing Kokoteni and doing a lot of hard work. That
like a donkey.
And donkeys, using donkeys to fetch water in the city and things like that. I mean, things that we should have solved, problems we should have solved many years ago. But we're still stuck there. It's like we're not moving forward, and we love where we are. What is going to shock us out of this bad place?
Simon, I think to bring it down and to bring it to a very practical level, I fundamentally believe that this thing will be changed by each and every one of us putting a finger on their gifting. And what I mean by that is we've all been given a gift or other, right? Your gifting may be sweeping the floor, but you do it so well until everybody comes and asks, nani amefagia hapa? And if my mandazi falls, I can even pick it up because of how you've done the job well. I like pointing to the Kenyan runners, who season after season keep on bringing out, a push and a thrust that has turned us into world beaters. You see Kenyans on the track, and they are going to win. Those are people who believe they are winners. They believe they are, they are going to win, and they do it. But by the way, they put a lot of hard work behind it. All right. And so if you are a doctor today, by the way, look at the professions, look at lawyers, look at doctors, look at teachers. We are a mess across the board. All right. What we need to do is each and every one of us to commit to being the best at what they are doing. So, so that, as Katindi is saying, if you are a policy writer or a maker, do it to the best of your ability. Think 30 years down the line. Connect the dots. If you're an engineer, do it to the best of your ability. I don't understand why Chinese must come to build our roads here. A Chinese will build a road. If you give it to an African, he will cool all the land. And like I said, then get elected as governor. So for me, it is simple. It is everybody agreeing to commit to doing what they want, what they are supposed to do, the best of their ability. Look at the COVID funds that we're talking about. I have no evidence that the money has been eaten. But if it has been eaten, it means that it's somebody who's not simply not being the best that they can be, or they should be, not doing their job. All right. And so it goes knocking on. It goes knocking on. The bad matatu driver, they look at the border guys who drive who ride their bikes on the wrong side of the road. And by the way, if you hoot at him, he insults you. What are we talking about? What's the difference between that border rider and the senator who's stealing our money up there? There is absolutely no difference. And by the way, tomorrow that border rider who's riding the road, his motorcycle on the wrong side of the road, because from a motorcycle, you graduate to a driver. I can assure you is the one who will be driving on the wrong side of the road. But you know what? In Rwanda, nobody allows them to do that nonsense. But in Kenya, it is okay. In fact, they'll do it in the face of a policeman. And we will not even talk about it. You'll hear somebody saying they are making a living by destroying, destroying society. So for me, I am challenging each and every one of us to committing to becoming the best that they can be. It's a spiritual journey, by the way. You can go to school. I keep saying you can be a professor, but spiritually you are useless. In fact, you go through society and nobody will ever talk about you. They'll only just keep on saying you are a professor when you die, but you added nothing to society because you did not understand yourself. All right. So over this COVID period, I think it is important for us even to start to reflect, to ask yourself, who am I? What do I stand for? What is my purpose? And by the time things are opening up, just commit yourself to doing it. And then I can assure you, as they say, the universe will conspire, or God will make sure that you get to where you want to get to. And that is how it has always worked. That is how you look at people like Einstein. They were not carrying bags of money. In fact, they had no money. When Gandhi was dying, he had $3 in his account. But we talk about Gandhi. There are so many people here who are billionaires, have stolen for us. And we will never recognize them because they are thieves and they are destroyers of society and they are not being the best that they can be. Somebody talked about consciousness, even your own children. When you tell your son, ng'ombe wewe, you are condemning that child. But when you tell your child, you know what, you can be president and you can do this and you nurture them to becoming that, that is what they become. All right. And so let's those people in education, let them do what they're supposed to do. Those people in health, let them do what they're supposed to do. You know, if you're driving on the road, do the right thing. Be a mungwana, not a mshenzi. That's all I'm saying. By the way, the formula, in short, the formula is very simple. It's about you being the best that you can be.
Amen. Amen. I say amen to that, Ken, because we need that. I think the Bible would say it, arise, shine. Your light has come. You know, the light is in you. God has created you to be a good person, to bless others around you, not to destroy society. We have what it takes for us to rebuild our nation to be what we desire. And Katindi, as we come to you, you know, I really get, I should say, I get annoyed. I really feel bad when I see, as Africans, we are begging to go and live in other people's lands. When we have a nice country that we can fix, and we have allowed, other people have fixed their own nations, and now we want to beg.
Dying in funny boats.
Yeah. In the Mediterranean and other places, trying to fight to go and live in another place when we can fix our own country. And I believe the rallying cry tonight is arise, shine. Let's wake up. Let's realize where we are at, whether it's systems other people left on us like colonialism, we can break free from this. Whether it's neo-colonialism, we are aware of it, we can break it. Whatever it is that has been conspired by other people, we are not just victims, we are victors. We can rise up and we can deal with these issues and shine. Katindi, what are your closing remarks around this conversation?
I think for me, I will differ a little bit with our closing remarks, but align with it at the same time. First of all, I need to emphasize that there are rather different realms of change. And one of them, as Ken rightly says, and yourself, is the personal, right? Where you are constantly making choices and decisions, and you cannot make the wrong decision and then blame the system. It can't work that way. If the system is not working and you do the right thing, then somehow things will align one day, right? So yes, exactly. So there's that very important realm. But secondly, I think we must also are responsible for the systems around us. And we do make choices about that. And if the systems are put in place, so we can give the example of Rwanda. Why will someone not drive on the wrong side of the road in Rwanda? It's because there will be systemic, or the system will give you some form of consequences that then cause you to align to certain principles. And we cannot lie to ourselves that society entirely will always make the right choices. But there are systems that then can help us conform to a certain way of doing things. And so
That's true.
we must also work at expecting those systems. And the
Mm.
problem is that we play victim. We say there's nothing we can do about, that's how things have always been done. Then we relinquish the power of being able to reimagine something different that can work for us, right?
Mm.
And so it is important for us as we work on ourselves and on doing the right thing to understand that we must work at expecting something different. And when we do that collectively, and I usually show a cartoon of a leader. It's, I mean, if you Google it, you'll find it, of a leader standing, where the leader is standing. I mean, if the board where he's standing gets off, he literally goes into the hole. And the people holding that leader on that sledge it's the people. And if they walked away from that sledge, they can make a difference. So that leader is not really in charge. You are in charge. And so then expecting something different and working towards doing those different, getting those different systems that work is critical. But the third thing is to understand there's a much bigger sort of like environment, like the global, that you have no control over, even as Kenyans, right? So they do things out there that affect us. But the question is, what choices are we making? Because in that realm, I cannot control anything, but I can make a decision about what about those things will I pick and what will I refuse, or what can I learn from. So the problem with us is that we even don't even learn. And I give you an example of even just this COVID season and the reopening. Countless times we saw the people who reopened and what they had to close because, it just completely went ballistic in terms of infection. But we still made that same decision knowing what the consequences were going to be, right? And so the question comes, wasn't there anything else we could reimagine? But have we placed so much value on the economy or on money that we don't value the lives of people, right? And so, and we can debate until cows come home about what was the better decision. Have we put people, anybody's life, to the point where that's just, collateral damage? And that so for the economy to grow, the economy to continue, one life is worth dying so that the economy can continue. My point is very simple, that in those different realms of change, the individual makes a decision and a choice about what happens. But all three are important if we are going to get a system that begins to truly resolve the kind of challenges we've been talking about this evening.
I love it. I love it. I wish we had 1 more hour, Ken, to continue with this discussion, but we're going to come back to it. So you guys need to stand by because I'm going to invite you back. In the next 3 weeks, I would like for us to be able to get to drill down to a place we have very good building bricks that we can pick up and say, let's rebuild our country. But I love what you've said, Katindi. I think you have said there's a person, there are the choices we make as people, and so we need to deal with ourselves. Then there's a system, and I think what I realized, Ken, the system is run by people. One of the reasons why someone in another place as a policeman would be able to say, no, we can't do this. There's a system that should prevent that, but the person is already corrupt, so he doesn't play the system or work the system. But of course, there are other reforms that we need to make and other things we need to do to systems to be able to serve, the end. What I realized, Ken, the system is, but there's also the global, and sometimes, Katindi, I just say, if we are able to understand ourselves and fix ourselves, then it's easy for us to connect with other people and deal with the global. If every country was doing well in Africa and we were building well, then we can come together as a team and say we won't take this and that from the West or from China or from anywhere else. But when we haven't fixed us, we don't even have a voice to be able to deal with the problem.
Just a quick one, Simon. I agree 100% with Katindi. And in my mind, you cannot separate the individual, the systems, local and global. When I say that the individual becomes the best that they can be, I'm saying that all of us have different roles. There are those who build the systems. There are those who run the systems. There are those who audit the systems. Everybody but or rather at all levels, if everybody is doing their best, then it
Yeah.
falls in place like a mosaic. It's a
Absolutely.
jigsaw puzzle. Every piece must be perfected. All right. You know, for instance, today we talk about German engineering. German engineering is based on the character you're talking about. There's a German character that has a focus on attention to detail. Right? And so that when they make the Mercedes or the BMW we love so much, it is because somebody has given themselves to doing that. Right? And then there's a system to sell it and bring it all over to Kenya and everything like that, so that everybody plays their role. The guy you are talking about who's pulling the bullock cart must not pull a bullock cart. We are not made as beasts of burden by God. You know what I'm saying?
As a policeman would be able to say
at the worst case scenario, raise a horse or a donkey to pull for you that cart. The bullock.
Yeah. I hear you well. Unfortunately, we have to come to an end. We are grateful for you, Ken. Thank you for being here from the Ungwana Institute. We are definitely going to have you back. Thank you very much, Dr. Katindi. You can see there's a lot more to talk about. So we're going to come back and we're going to build this. And for us, it's not just a matter of making noise. I think for us and all of you Kenyans who have joined, and thank you for your many comments, it's because we want better, because we know we are better than what we have been. And we're going to have other people coming as well, politicians and others, and we have this debate. And I love what was said earlier by one of the people who made a comment. Let's be honest about ourselves and let's do something to make sure that we are proud of our country, and our children and grandchildren will be happy to live in Kenya and build this country. So thank you very much, Dr. Katindi. Thank you, Ken Jiro. Thank you all who joined us. We're going to be back here. And may the Lord bless you. Let's continue to do something about our country. Each one of us, let's carry our responsibility and let's build Kenya and Africa. God bless you.
God bless
Thank you.
Bye
Good
bye.
night. Good night, Katindi.
Good night.
Simon. Thank you.
All right, good night. Thank you, everyone.